Welcome to Super Gamer Boys Live. This is what we do. This is how we do things. So,
roll with the punches.
Tonight, we are talking about The Legend of Zelda and which one is our favorites. I call it the Legend of Zelda Showdown. So, how's this going to work, okay, is we're going to start by going Adrian, Eddie, Will, and me, okay, in that order. And each of us are going to give our number 4, then our number 3, then number 2, number 1, and each time we go through, we're going to talk about why that specific one is so important to us and why we love it so much and why it deserves to be one of the greatest games of all time. So we have 4 because, well, yeah, first, second, third, and fourth place in any given competition. So I figured that was good. And plus, not to mention, it's easier to play that many games instead of having to throw on an extra 5th one. So
hey, it works.
Yeah. So, little housekeeping real quick. If you guys do not, to any of the viewers out there, if you do not follow us on anything else besides Twitch, just note that we also have a YouTube channel and we have a podcast. And I recommend you guys go check both those out by looking up the same name, Super Gamer Boys on YouTube and Super Gamer Boys on your podcasting platform of choice. Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. We're there. Trust us. And if we're not there, we're probably hanging out in our Discord. So go check that out. You can go to supergamerboys.com/Discord and you can join us online. Give us a chat. Tell us how much you think my beard looks gross, if you want, you know?
Looks pretty good today.
I like it.
Thank you. I've been using some beard butter. I got it for Christmas actually, and you know it's not bad. I feel good. I feel fresh, and it smells nice.
Moisturized. Nice and moisturized.
Yeah. So, Adrian, we'll start with you, my man. Give us your number 4.
My number 4 should be, I don't know. It's history's greatest, how should I say? History's greatest revision. Everyone hated it when it came out. Now it's a masterpiece. And I'm talking about the Wind Waker. Of course.
That game is amazing.
Oh, my God. I got it. I believe I got it on launch. And what year was that? 2002, I believe. And I remember playing it, and I was like, you know, wait a minute. I had no idea that people hated it at all because I wasn't doing stuff on the internet, like in message boards and stuff like that at that time. So I was playing it thinking, oh, well, this is just another Zelda game, because before that, they all were looking kind of cartoony. Link to the Past was what? It was pixel art.
Yeah.
So the fact that people were like, oh, it's cel shaded. It looks like a kiddie game. Yeah, your game about a time traveling wizard that fights a magical sword wielding elf. It looks like a cartoon.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But no, I think the game it's definitely full of heart. It's one of the most aesthetically pleasing Zeldas, I would say. I don't think a lot of people would say that. Now, the one thing is I've only ever played it on GameCube, so I never was able to see how it looked in HD. I wish I could have, but I've heard great things about it. But you know it's good if I'm saying it's this good, and I've only ever played it in 480p. So
yeah,
good.
Did you
really good?
Did you play it on the HD remaster for the Wii U?
Nope.
No?
Played it on GameCube.
Me neither.
Oh, I did, and it's amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah. We'll get to that later, though.
I think the ending is really... I really like the ending where Ganondorf kind of starts to get, like, really reflective and kind of pensive, and he starts that monologue. I think that's really well done.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the rare times that we get to see the villain actually kind of... In a Zelda game, like, kind of reflect on his actions and your actions and how they will affect all of Hyrule going forward. So I really thought that was interesting, that because it feels like a tonal shift from the rest of the game.
Yeah.
The rest of the game is like, this is a quirky, we're going to go and save the world. And then at the end, you know, you kind of get that. So I really enjoyed that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good game. That's one of my all-time favorites, but it did not make my top 4.
Okay.
We'll get
fair.
There. I agree though. It's an amazing game. Ed, we're moving on to you, buddy. Number 4.
Number 4 Zelda on my list is A Link Between Worlds.
Hey.
Ooh, yeah. That game was great.
That's a good one.
on the 3DS. I recommend it. Everyone at least give it a shot. I really hope they remake this game at some point on the Switch because I think it'd be a lot of fun. This game is, and I'll talk about Link to the Past in a little bit, but this game really took a formula from Link to the Past and just made it really awesome and added an element that on the surface you might think that's kind of different, but they make it work. Going into the wall and exploring different areas and going through cracks and doing all those things, it's fantastic. It's such a cool element and it feels good. Exploration is great. It's an open world type Zelda because you could really tackle it however you want. If you want to go to certain dungeons in any order, do it. When I first played it the first time, I took on Turtle Rock as my first dungeon, and I was able to do it.
You're a maniac.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I was able to take the items and go do my thing, and I was like, that's really exciting for the player because every playthrough will be different. So for this show, I replayed it through on hero mode, and it was challenging, but not as challenging as I thought it would be. I beat it pretty easily, honestly. And my one downside to A Link Between Worlds is the aesthetic is in my opinion, one of the worst in Zelda. The aesthetic's just a little bit off. They kind of look like Keebler elves. Looks like a Keebler elf. You know what I mean? Like there's just there's something off about it in that sense, and that's why it's 4 on my list. But from a gameplay standpoint, it's up there. It's really great. So that's my number 4.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Somebody comes up. They got a box for A Link to the Past in this hand.
Mm-hmm.
They got a box for A Link Between Worlds in this hand. They're at the cash register.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Link to the Past.
Okay.
Link to the Past. No, without hesitation. He didn't even hesitate. He was like,
because a lot of people are saying that Link Between Worlds is A Link to the Past perfected. And
no,
I don't know how you perfect perfection.
No, but that's false.
Yeah. It's different because it has different elements in it that make it so much different as far as you can have whatever item you want right off the bat. You can go to whatever dungeon you want right off the bat. The story is completely different. To me, even though it takes place in the same world, it's completely different from like a game feel standpoint. So it's hard. Like you could compare those, that's fine, but I think that they're too different to say that it is that perfected. So and I'll get into Link to the Past later, but
okay. I was just curious.
Yeah. So, all right, moving on. Will.
Good question.
All right, my turn.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. So
number 4.
A fun fact, right? I got into Zelda pretty late in the game, man. I think the first Zelda game I played was Link to the Past, right? I demolished that game. And then after that, the following game after that was the one for N64. But long story short, now with you linking up with you guys, I've had the opportunity to, broaden my horizons with the Zelda franchise. And on my number 4, I have to say I have to put Phantom Hourglass for the DS.
Okay.
Love
Game
it.
is
Love it.
cringy, man. I don't know.
I
played an hour of it. I tried my best, and I was like, the story. I mean, I guess I'm too used to Ganondorf and Ganon and Princess Zelda. I'm like, what is this? What am I playing here? I mean, is this even? Is this Zelda? Like, I had to check the game. Does it say Link on it? Like, what is this? Right? So again, I get it. I get it. Something different. It's a 12th installment in the franchise, and like I said earlier in our conversation, right? The fact that they make it about Link is what keeps. I believe is what keeps Zelda, the whole franchise, alive and pushing forward because it's always about Link. So they gave him a whole new story. He's on an island, or in an ocean somewhere, who knows where. And I mean, I could barely grasp the story, let alone get through the graphics of it. And I'm like, man,
it was 05. It was a DS. They were pushing the limit.
And they look like elves. Then they look like elves, right? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't get used to this. They look like dwarves to me. I'm like, I don't know.
I got a soft spot for the DS games, man. I know they're not everybody's favorite, but
and maybe I have to play another one, right? Because it's the first one on DS. So maybe I have to play another one on DS.
Spirit Tracks is better than Phantom Hourglass, right? But I like both of them just because I don't know. They are like real quaint to me, and they both just little side Zeldas. You know what I mean? Like this is like a filler arc,
side quest.
Honestly,
like full game of side quests. That's what it feels like.
Honestly, I started looking at the box art for Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass and going, "This looks like a Nick Jr. cartoon." Like,
it looked like Wind Waker,
and I love it.
No, it didn't. It didn't. It's the same Link, but like the Link in Wind Waker has the King of Red Lions as like his boat, and even like all the bad guys look kind of scary. Where I was really looking at the art for this, I was like, he's riding around on a train.
This is scary. This is scary villains. This is scary enemies.
Don't knock it till you try it, dude.
I felt like I was playing Adventure Time for Xbox.
What?
That's what it felt like playing Phantom Hourglass on DS.
Phantom Hourglass is slept on, man. It's
Is
solid.
it?
Oh, man.
That's all we
Like one
got.
of those, like you watch a movie and you don't really get into it until the hour you're into it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? You think this one is? I'll give it another hour, see how it goes. But
See how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what though? You know what? And I would tell you this: don't go into the DS games expecting Ocarina of Time or expecting
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
expecting like right. Don't expect a traditional Zelda when you play those.
that's
games.
I think that's right.
These are the furthest from an actual Zelda, like going through dungeons Zelda there is.
Right, and I
That's why
realized that
respect
with
it,
Phantom.
because they did something different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Will, I have
Yeah.
to ask you didn't like Linebeck as a character? Because I find him hilarious. I think that's one of the funniest Zelda characters, if not the funniest.
I don't know.
He's so funny.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just I don't know. It was so different. Like he said, it's not traditional.
different, too
but I think it's
fast.
too different,
Yeah.
too fast.
It's-
Right.
yeah,
And like I said, I'm practically catching up. So for
Mhm.
me,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I don't know.
No, I
Give
get
it,
it.
like I said, I'll give it another hour, see how it goes. But other than that,
Yeah.
like I said, I'll give it another try. But it was okay. That was my fourth. That's my fourth.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so now's my turn. So my number 4 would be, it's actually technically 2 games, because it is the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Okay?
Hey, underdogs.
Dude, those games are probably some of the ugliest looking Zelda games apart from like the originals.
Oh, it was Game Boy Color.
Exactly, they were Game Boy Color. Look, man, Game Boy Color, it doesn't get a pass. The Game Boy Color had some very terrible looking games. Okay?
It's hardware from what, 98?
I'm not expecting them to look good. I just want the games to be fun. But nonetheless, they were amazing. I remember being a kid. Yes, see, in-source ITV, those games were lit. They most definitely were. And what made them so fun, okay, was I remember playing through Ages. I played through Ages first. And this was back in like high school. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. I beat it. And then I was like, sweet. So I used to mow lawns. That was like my main source of income. So if I wanted games, I had to mow lawns.
Yeah.
So I had like 4 different houses on the block that I did, and I, just worked my butt off all summer to get games. And so I got Ages, beat it, loved it, and then I was like, oh, cool. So I'm gonna get Seasons now. And then I found out you can link them. I was like, what? You can link Ages and Seasons? So then I linked my game, and because Ages ends with like a weird like oh, there's something else going on. Like you meet one of the twin Rova sisters, you're like, okay, that's trippy. And then you get through Seasons, and you're like, oh, Ganon is the big bad. Heck yes.
All a part of the plan.
Yeah, and so then it was almost like playing 3 games because you got to play, Ages, Seasons, and then beat this big bad boss battle at the end.
I don't know if you knew, but it was actually supposed to be 3 games.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
I think that's how they sell it on the 3DS. I remember buying. That's one of the last bundles I bought on the 3DS on the Nintendo store. They had a sale on it for like $5 or $10 for Seasons and Times, and the third one I can't remember exactly what it was.
No, so it might have been Link's Awakening. So
That's what. Yes, it was Link's Awakening.
So,
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
They were gonna do 3 of Seasons, Ages, and then a third one, but I think they didn't do that because they wanted to do a DX for Link's Awakening. So they took the resources from that and made Link's Awakening DX instead.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which is funny because
it was supposed to be for the 3 Triforce goddesses.
Right,
Ages,
right.
Seasons, and then the third one was supposed to be Ferrore, but that didn't happen.
They benched it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Those games, I just remember loving them pieces. I love the mechanic. I mean, that's the real draw of any Zelda game, right? You take a guy trying to save the world, and then you're like, okay, well, what's the one different thing between each game? This one happened to be controlling time, or controlling seasons, or, riding a freaking ghost train. So, every game's got something different. But, that's my number 4. That's my number 4. That's literally the formula for Zelda until you get to Breath of the Wild. So, moving on up, number 3. And yes, those cat jams from the harp are the songs from the harp cat jam is what Enzor says. So, all right, Adrian, take us to number 3, bud.
My number 3 is, speaking of Link's Awakening, is the remake for Link's Awakening that came out on the Switch.
Yes, I'm happy someone picked that. That game was amazing.
Now, I said it in my notes that I sent you guys, but I'll say it here too. If somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, what is a Zelda game?" I'm showing them this. This is the purest essence of what a typical, well, I shouldn't say typical, a normal Zelda game is.
Yeah.
It's Zelda condensed all the way down that anybody could understand what the gameplay is, what the dungeon aspects are, what the items are, what the worlds and enemies are kind of like. It's perfect for that.
Yeah.
But as for the experienced fan, this is a callback to Zeldas of yore. Of course, it's a remake of Link's Awakening, but I'm saying, like, this game is so, like, it's so beautiful. I don't understand how they were able to pull this art style off on Switch hardware like that. It's incredible. Yeah. Some of those textures, they almost look like real models sitting on there.
Yeah.
The music is really well done. It's not overpowering, but it's definitely like, it's a bunch of live recordings. It's really well done. It's not too much. The story, they kept it as faithful as they could while making the important upgrades and updates that they needed to. It's probably, I would say it's in the upper echelons of well done remakes.
Oh yeah, it's Final Fantasy VII remake status, where they just were like, hey, here's a terrible looking game because the original looked absolute just terrible because it was the original Game Boy, and then they turned it into this.
Today. Yep, agreed. Just like the Final Fantasy remake, they took polygon figures and just remade it into this smooth, modern day technology textures, and it looks beautiful. My wife, I just bought her a Switch for her anniversary last month, and that's one of the games that I was looking into getting for.
Oh,
yeah. No, I would definitely, if she's never played Zelda before, I would start her on this one.
The last one she played was on the Wii. That's the one I watched her play. Skyward Swords. Yeah. But then the more recent one would be this one, that Link's Awakening. Yep.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Skyward Sword was the last one she played.
Oh. Yeah, on the Wii. That was hack and slash. That was pretty fun, man.
It might get a redemption arc here in a couple of weeks. We'll see.
Of all the Zeldas to give an HD remaster,
they already gave the other two one.
So give Twilight Princess an HD remaster.
It already has one. It came out on Wii U.
It's on Wii U.
Twilight Princess has a HD remaster.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the most recent time I played that one.
Well, you know what I'd rather play anyway? Is that again.
I'd rather play Link Between Worlds remake.
But at the end of the day, I really hope there's a lot of rumors with Switch, upgrade hardware that are supposed to be coming out. I really, really hope that they go back and they update that game to be a solid 60 frames a second. It really deserves to be that, because for the average person, it may not take them out, but sometimes that chug really, really takes me out of it. And I really hate that it does that, because that game deserves so much better than the frame rate that it gets. And I'm sure it's like bottlenecking the Switch somewhere, and it's pushing it as hard as it can go, but it really needs to be optimized, and it really should be presented as best as it can. So I hope it gets an update in the future. So
yeah. I say grab that, get Link Between Worlds in that art style on the Switch, and then we're talking.
Yeah, okay. I agree.
That'd be awesome.
I'm listening.
I agree. All right, Ed. So
Number three for me, Adrian already said this one. It's The Wind Waker. It is my third. And the reason I love Wind Waker, and I understand some people can't get behind the aesthetic. That's totally okay. To me, I think it's charming. I find it fun. But I think this is the best story in any Zelda game. I haven't played Skyward Sword. I know people love that story. So disclaimer. But also,
Skyward Sword doesn't have a good story.
Yes, it does.
You're bugging. I've heard that too. No, I've actually heard that Skyward Sword is the best story.
Some people have said that. Anyway.
I've heard the exact opposite from so many people.
You've heard people who are frustrated because they don't like the controls.
No, it's a terrible game. It's just not good.
Okay.
It's not Zelda.
We'll
It's
see
too.
when the HD comes out.
It's so linear.
Okay.
Go ahead. Anyway,
I can see that, but it's still a great story.
Right. That's what people have said. Anyway, going back to Wind Waker.
if it's so great, how come it's not none of our top 4s?
I didn't say it was great. I haven't even played it.
All right, I'll stop derailing the conversation. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This Link is my favorite variation of Link, and the reason for it is he's the most relatable Link ever, because he's just a regular kid who wakes up one morning and his sister gets kidnapped and he wants to save her. You have a Link who has a grandma, who has a family, a sister, and he's just an everyday kid. He's like all of us. And I know we're gonna talk about Twilight Princess, and I don't want to hate on Twilight Princess, but that Link is he's like a Captain America level strength, like lifting dudes, like sumo wrestlers, like super strong, like he's like a superhero, which is awesome for that context. But this Link is like just an everyday kid, and I think there's something really charming, and it goes with the aesthetic of that game in a way. And then you get the pirate aesthetic, you get the all sorts of really cool things. I think it's my favorite soundtrack in all of Zelda. I love the Dragon's Roost theme. I love Grandma's theme. It kind of makes me a little emotional.
I was just getting ready to ask you. I was gonna say, are you able? I'm never able. You know the part when you leave Onset for the first time, and then Link starts to wave like this, and then he thinks about it, and then he goes to the edge of the ship and starts waving real hard. Dude, that gets me every time. Every time.
All the bashes on him, which is hilarious. And it's my favorite variation of Zelda too, because she has so much personality as Tetra. She's so spunky. She's just got like this attitude about her that she doesn't take anyone's crap. I love that portrayal of Zelda and Link. So and then Ganondorf, Adrian talked about Ganondorf on it. I think his just reflective where he's like, I'm stuck in this cycle where I can't seem to win. But what I'm going to do now is try to gang the system and capture all these girls and find a way to get the Triforce in one spot. It's like a super cerebral Ganondorf where he's like more reserved, and he's kind of like, instead of going crazy with power, I'm just going to kind of let it play out because I'm stuck in a time loop.
Right.
And it's really a fascinating.
I'm going to be able to do it again anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is cool for that character. So there's so much in depth beyond the childish aesthetic. Is this beautiful game with an amazing story and great soundtrack, and it's my number 3. So I love Wind Waker so much.
I think I can get past for Wind Waker. I can get past the aesthetic. I actually enjoyed everything about that game. Interestingly enough, so I've been replaying that one with my kids. Like I have it on GameCube, and I was able to find a copy of it, and I was like, oh, sure, cool, I can play this with them. So I'm going through it, and they're loving it because it's like a Saturday morning cartoon, Yeah. And I like what you said about Link being relatable in that, because especially to my kids, they can relate with Link, like, like Isaac's younger sister, like my son Isaac, he's got a little sister, and he's like, oh, got it. Link's got to go save his sister. He's like, cool, like he gets it, Yeah. And
it's also the most expressive Link from an emotional standpoint. Like his face,
his eyes.
He's always making faces. I love it so much.
I remember reading an interview with them when that game had come out in Nintendo Power. You guys remember Nintendo Power magazine?
Of course.
Yeah.
I had every issue at some point.
Oh man, I had them for years, and then I got married, and my wife was like, "Do you even need these?"
They're history.
I was like, "They're gonna be worth money someday." And then she let me hang on to them for a few more years, and then I was like, "Yeah, never mind. They're just taking up space. I'll get rid of them." But anyway, so I remember reading an interview with them, with the creators of that one. I forgot who was it. I want to say, wasn't Kenji
for the creators of what?
That Wind Waker? Kenji Yamamoto?
Was it? I thought when did Aonuma take over?
Aonuma took over. No, I think it was Aonuma. I think Aonuma did take over Wind Waker.
I feel like around then.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They had an interview with him, and they were talking about purposely trying to make Link's facial expressions be very prominent in that game, because they wanted it to be, when Link's like sneaking around a corner, his eyes will squint, and he'll like do this little, like thing with his eyes. Yeah. It's like so clever. And the other thing too is the physics in that game. Impressive. Yeah. So just wanted to note that too. Yeah. But yeah, Wind Waker's amazing.
Love it.
I'm happy.
It gets a bad rap, man, but not a lot of people know that it was more powerful than PS2.
It was.
It had so many bangers on it. The GameCube is awesome.
Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime.
Was the only thing that held it back.
Need for
the disc
Speed.
size.
Yep.
Need for Speed.
Second favorite console of all time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Anyway, good times. Will, take us on to number 3.
All right, my number 3, Ocarina of Time for N64.
Okay.
Woo!
Certified
What?
classic.
Oh my God, the 5th installment, right? The
Mhm.
first game N64 had on the Zelda franchise. The first 3D game ever. Man, it was just a beauty. That game was a storyline too. The storyline changed up a bit too from, like I said, A Link to the Past from what I was not used to. But it was I said it intertwined a new story with the old, and that's what I appreciated about that. And not only that, but it had the time lapse, right? You play the flute and you go to sleep for seven years or whatever, and you go back and forth multiple times, going back and forth, back and forth. Other than that, like I said, it was a great game. I mean, the similar storyline to the rest of them. You're fighting Ganondorf for the Triforce, saving the princess and all that. But the way you moved around, the mechanics, again, how you were able to go into the dungeons, and everything was just 3D. You were moving in full motion, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just looking at it from the top or from the side like you're normally used to. It was revolutionary for the time, I think.
Man, you're not kidding, dude. I remember my dad. I remember the day my dad brought that game home, and we popped that in. I said, "There's no way this
You're
is a
getting
game.
off.
There's no way this is a game. Look at how big that field is. We get to go all the way across
all
there.
the way across. Yep.
Yeah.
That
I'm just gonna piggyback off what you said too, because Ocarina of Time is actually my number 3 slot too, and that game was so groundbreaking for a 3D adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really, really was. Like Mario 64 had come out and kind of had laid the groundwork, and there was
nothing on Zelda.
there were some other games that had kind of, been around and kind of tried to do the same thing, but nothing was able to really grab you and immerse you as a kid in a world that size. You know what I mean? The bosses felt bigger. The soundtrack was memorable. Like seriously, like almost. Oh man,
Ganon was huge at the end.
yeah,
Are you kidding me? He's like not 20 times your size.
yeah.
when he's playing
And-
the organ as you're going up the stairs, the organ gets louder
So
and
good.
louder.
Yeah. That blood red carpet all the way up to the top, man. I'll never. Oh man, every moment about that.
It was atmospheric. An atmospheric title.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It really was. They accomplished so much with so little in that
Really?
game.
Really?
Like if you go through the credits, you look at the credits for the team that made that game then, and you look at the credits for a team that makes like I don't know anything else
Breath of the
today.
Wild.
Yeah.
The Last of Us or something.
Yeah, and it's just
Breath of the
like
Wild.
a handful of team members must have been working overtime for years to get that thing as polished as it was.
Figuring out new hardware too, because this is jump into 3D all of a sudden.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like, they put all their resources into Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, and like you're trying to
paid
figure out
off.
how to take a 2D character into a 3D environment. There's like so much at risk at that point for Nintendo, and
Yeah.
they killed it. They nailed
They
it.
had to
That
be
game.
pulling their hair out trying to figure that out, dude. Until Z targeting got thought of, they're like, "How do we do this?"
Do you guys know about the R-Wing? The R-Wing in the code? The
The debug, yeah.
Yeah,
I
you,
didn't
you get an R-Wing from Star Fox. Like it's in the code. Because they
No
use
way.
Star Fox technology to develop Z targeting. So if you like break the game and hack into the files, you can actually get an R-Wing flying around and cookery for it.
That's crazy.
I didn't know that.
That's crazy.
So I ended up playing Ocarina of Time on the 3DS,
Okay.
and I gotta
So
say,
you got all the upgrades.
I think that's the 3DS versions of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time are the best versions of those games, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Like they didn't need it. They just fixed it. They just made it smoother. They made it run faster. They made it prettier.
Yeah.
It's so good. Did
Yeah.
you do the Heroes mode or the Master Quest?
I did Master Quest when Wind Waker came out. I remember, so I had pre-ordered Wind Waker, so I remember
Yeah.
I got that, and I was like, oh, cool.
Right, that's right. Oh, you had that GameCube disc?
Yeah,
That thing was so sick.
yeah.
That thing was
No,
awesome.
it's $100 now.
I know. I sold it like a dummy to GameStop.
What?
Oh, they're laughing.
If I could go back in time and talk to young Zetch and be like, listen, man,
Don't sell nothing.
nothing is worth it. Nothing is worth
That
it.
thing was such a cool disc. My buddy had it, and I was so jealous.
Yeah.
GameStop.
Yeah, like,
I love them.
that was it. Yeah. Anyway, Ocarina of Time, number 3. One of the most memorable experiences ever. I mean, especially like that last boss fight. Last thing I'm going to say about it, that last boss fight, I remember playing through it the first time. I felt so epic. Like the soundtrack was perfect. The size of Ganon, as Will was saying, Ganon was ginormous.
Enormous. Ginormous.
And it was
How are
like,
you gonna do this? How are you gonna beat him?
oh man, that game was good. I love getting the Begoron sword.
Your sword?
Yeah. Yeah, and you lose Navi, so you can't lock on.
God, you feel hopeless.
Yeah, it was, man, that game was good. And then you finally beat it, and then the credits.
Yeah.
I remember being like, that game.
Relief.
That game is the reason I always watch all the credits at the end of any game I beat ever now. I always watch all the credits all the way through. It's my victory lap. And that game is
I was
what.
always so confused though why Navi just bails. Like he goes back in time, and all of a sudden Navi just gone. She just goes out the window. It's like not even a goodbye.
She's like, doesn't need me. You don't need me anymore.
My job is done here. I'm out.
She's like, I'm out. Yeah,
But at least give me like say goodbye, Link. Like she's straight up ghosted.
it's understood.
Yeah.
You know.
She's like, look,
That's
we
the
know what
thing,
time it is.
Look, like
That's the thing in that game.
you got
Be
bad
well.
breath. You smell bad. I'm out of here.
Hey, look, listen, I'm leaving.
Yeah. Like, you're leaving? No, I'm leaving. You obnoxious fairy.
Yeah, the real story is Link kicked her out.
Yeah, that's really what people don't understand is Link's like, there's the window. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You've been in my life too long. From the minute I
Hey,
woke up.
no,
one day.
you listen.
Yeah, right?
Anyway, all right. Take us to number 2, Adrian.
All right. My number 2 is The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap.
Minish Cap.
Minish Cap, that's right.
I
The
love it. I love it.
game that ever came out on Game Boy Advance. The Minish Cap is such a perfect fit for Game Boy Advance. It's small enough to where it feels like you can get a lot done on your commute or wherever, because you're on a handheld, so most likely you're going to be going somewhere, or you only have so much time to play because you're out.
Right.
So it's enough to where you could play a little bit and you still felt like you had an adventure. You did something substantial and you were able to do it, save, and get out of there, come back to it. The sprite work and the art style, I think, is some of the best I've seen in a game, period. I don't know how they pull some of that stuff off. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's definitely, it's seemed like some of it was a little bit of a rush job, because I hear a lot of reused music from Ocarina of Time, and some characters make cameos that were in Ocarina of Time, but I feel like that one really didn't get a lot. I don't hear a lot of people talk about Minish Cap when they talk about Zelda, and I don't know. Did it sell a lot? Do you guys know if it sold a lot? I don't remember.
Did. Which is weird.
I know I still have mine, but yeah.
The Game Boy Advance was a well-selling system, and that was the only game. They had the remake, the Link to the Past remake on Game Boy Advance that I had, but I
had that one, but I don't know, that one I really didn't count. I mean, I bought it, but it was like, I already have the Super Nintendo one. I want to play it when I'm not in front of my Super Nintendo, so I'll just buy that. No. But this was like an actually from the ground up.
Yeah, it's good
for the Game Boy Advance. It's really good.
Yeah. My only complaint is it's too short. I just wish it was longer. I wish you had more, but it might be limitations on the Game Boy Advance. Is like they can only have 4 dungeons or whatever.
Yeah,
there's only 4 dungeons in that game.
Yeah, but they're big.
Oh man, I bet you I almost had that game beat, because I remember I had borrowed it off of a friend of mine, in high school or whatever. Whenever it had come out, and I had gotten like really far in it, but I wasn't able to finish it, and I had to give it back. So I was like, dang.
Well, there's 4 dungeons, but there's a lot of stuff in the world that you could do too.
And the NPCs are great in that game. Like the NPCs are really enjoyable, and I like the Minish people.
Yeah.
That's right. You should go tiny.
They almost came back in Breath of the Wild, but they didn't have enough time to put them in.
I was like, oh, I belong here.
You know what I really like about that game, which I'll touch on later, is that there's so many moments in that game where you're like, I can get there, but I don't have the right item. And that's when Zelda does that, it's perfect. When it's like, oh, I can come back to this spot when I have an item that I can actually get there, and you remember it in your brain.
Put this on your map.
Minish Cap is so good at that, because you're like, oh, maybe I can be tiny and get over there, and you become tiny and you go and you're like, oh, I need an item, I'll come back later. But like there's all these little things in that game, which is cool, because like, so for being like the 4 dungeons and like a contained world, there's so much depth to it, which is a really good game.
So that's my number 2.
Number 2.
Love
that's
that
good
one.
pick. Fun stuff. All right, Ed, what you got?
Number 2 for me is Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna piggyback off of you too. So you go and say what you say, because Breath of the Wild is my number 2 as well.
A little bit of recency bias, but I see you.
It's not.
Yeah, I mean, when this game came out, my wife got it for me right before our son was born, so right before she was in labor, and I remember playing it so much, like in the hospital even, and like I associate that with it. But other than that, because we had like a 2-day labor, but that game just took what was great about the first Zelda in the series and just amplified it like to the 10th degree. It's like everything about it is fantastic. I love when games aren't too like. Here's what I love about it: the tutorial doesn't feel like a tutorial. It's like the tutorials you're playing the game and you're figuring stuff out as you're going through it.
I was gonna say there is none.
Yeah, that's the mark of a fantastic game. It's like throw me in there and let me just figure it out instead of like having a 5-hour clicking through a bunch of menus. I hate that more than anything. Like let me just figure it out, and like that's why this game is fantastic in a lot of ways. But the replay value is super high. You can play it in a bunch of different ways. The physics are really great in the game. I think the story is fine. I don't think it's the best story, but I think it's fine. I like the use of NPCs. It feels big. I mean, there's not much else to say about it other than it's a beautiful game, and I think Zelda. Perfect.
A lot of people disagree with me, but I really think that Breath of the Wild it's the Legend of Zelda, a series reboot. I think it's Zelda 1. Mm-hmm. I think it's a total remake of it's what people in 1985, when you thought what Zelda was, that's what this is.
Yeah.
Because when people in 85 were like, "Oh my God, I could go anywhere. I could do anything," and they're not telling me how to do anything. I can just find out an adventure on my own. That's that. Breath of the Wild is that game realized.
Right.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
the soundtrack's great.
Yeah.
I'll start there. Soundtrack, man. So like the tiny for the most time you're running around, it's quiet, but then occasionally like you get those little tiny little piano, notes just popping in, very subtle, very soft. Like I love that. Like it's like we don't got to have music going the entire time. It was very much, less is more. In just all respects, like even from the story perspective. I mean, yeah, sure, there's not a big bombastic, story to go off of, but it fits. It's what makes that game so great. It's because Ganon's already won, and you're the comeback story. You're just you're Rocky training for the next fight throughout the entire game. You're just like, okay, I can literally do whatever I want right now. Because I'm not on a time crunch. I'm not trying to beat Ganon I'm not trying to beat Ganon to the Triforce or something like that. I'm just trying to make sure I'm ready to go toe to toe with them later. And I love that concept. That for me is what made that game even more enjoyable because I wasn't feeling rushed.
Mm-hmm. Now, you got to remember though, we had some developments. Ganon won in this timeline. Don't forget. There's another one now.
Ganon, yeah.
Hyrule Warriors is that other timeline.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was a prequel to this game. It
is.
So I think at the end of Ocarina of Time, that's when you actually learn that there's like a split in time. It like splits into like 3 different timelines.
Hyrule Warriors. Hyrule Warriors is it's the alternate telling of the prequel for Breath of the Wild, where the champions survive and you all band together. I'm not going to say too much more than that.
Okay.
But let's just say events fold out differently in Hyrule Warriors than they do in Breath of the Wild.
Oh, dang. I got to get that game now. Okay.
Yeah. So in Breath of the Wild, you see timeline A, but in Hyrule Warriors, you get to see timeline B.
Now,
so we don't even know what the sequel is.
Are you talking about, real quick, are you talking about Hyrule Warriors or Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity?
Age of Calamity.
Age of Calamity. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So we don't know. The sequel to Breath of the Wild could be based off of either of those. We have no idea right now.
Interesting.
Something to noodle on.
I'm not going to noodle on it. I'm just going to wait for the game to come out. But yeah, anyway.
I also, one more thing on Breath of the Wild is when you finally go to Hyrule Castle, it's one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah.
Like it's such a fun experience as a gamer.
Oh, man. I love Breath of the Wild is seriously, to me, I feel like Breath of the Wild is actually the best Zelda game ever. Like, the best. I don't think it's even a contest as to which game is the best Zelda. Breath of the Wild is Zelda perfection. It's not my favorite, which is what this show is about, what my favorite is. But it is from every aspect. I'll jump in to that game now and still find something, after hundreds of hours of playing it, something I haven't found. It's
Yeah.
insane.
I know for a fact, on my first run through, I know I only experienced about a third of the game.
Did you find the big Coliseum? Like in a big abandoned Coliseum?
Where the vinyl is?
Yeah.
Vinyl.
When I first found that, I was like, what the heck? And it gives that world so much more character because you're like, you're finding, all you're doing the entire game is exploring ruins.
Yeah.
Like,
Did you find the apple lady?
no?
See?
I'm gonna put that play together.
There's a lady who tends an orchard of apples and flowers, right?
Yeah.
And every time you go over to her orchard,
Yeah.
you
She
know what I'm talking
yells
about.
at you. Yeah.
Wow. I
See
love
what I'm
it.
saying?
I
You
love it.
never know. 4 years of this game and you still finding stuff out. That's, man.
Have you time shot, if you like hit a rock and you like freeze the time, right? And then you hit the crap on the rock
And jump on it?
and then jump on it before the timer runs out, you like launch heck far. That was one of the funnest things ever, man. Oh my
I'm right
goodness.
there with you, Zach. This is the best game. It's not my favorite,
Right.
but this is the best one.
It's the best one. Apart from the weapons
One
breaking all the
drawback.
time. But yeah.
The one drawback is the weapons breaking, but also there's no dungeons. You know, it's all those shrines.
It didn't need them. It didn't need dungeons.
I like the shrines, but sometimes I like dungeons in Zelda. You know,
The world is kind of the dungeon to me.
Exactly. Like and even the divine beasts felt more like the dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
And they felt different. Like there's nothing about Breath of the Wild that was used, really. I mean, except for the Master Sword and maybe a Deku Tree, and Koroks. But that's
And Zelda.
and Link and Zelda and your main stuff. But I mean, as far as like gameplay aspects, you know, like it really was unique. All right, well, anyway, take us to number 2, buddy. What's your number 2?
2, Zelda for the NES, the number
Okay.
1.
Yes.
Man, what a great story, man! And I love
Heart
how
attack, man.
at the beginning of the game they scroll up, give you a little excerpt of what happened, you know, a little background story about Ganon and what he's done. It's pretty much like Ocarina of Time started, but in the story mode, like kidnapping the princess, wanting the Triforce piece of the Triforce. She pretty much broke it up into 8 different pieces, and that's what you're tasked to do throughout the game.
Mhm.
I pretty much beat that game in one sitting, to be honest. It was 9 hours, and that's because I did a real noob thing. When I died for the first time, I hadn't saved it. It was 2 hours into the game.
Ah.
I didn't know the difference between continue and retry. Now I do. Now I do. You press continue at all times, no matter what. I went and pressed retry, and it took me back to the very beginning. I was stressed. I was stressed. So 7 hours turned into 9 hours, and either way though, I went around and I used a strategy guide for that one. So it's like, make it easier for me to get around, do everything first. But just like Ed said about I forgot which game you said that you can go into whatever dungeon you want to first. This one is pretty much like that too. You can start wherever you want as long as you can beat the dungeon accordingly. You still get the secret items in them. You'll still, it's interesting because I feel, I don't want to push too forward, but
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Link to the Past, I feel is like a remake of Zelda NES. In like a more fancier version, and it's not so because NES was more it was like literally you're staring at a map and you're going through slides of screens, but so was A Link to the Past, right? And I just feel like it was a more refined version of the first Zelda.
Oh, hands down.
It's definitely. I feel like it's an evolution of the
Right.
first one. I think they took what they learned from that one and and took it with them and enhanced it to make A Link to the Past, but. You have to have a foundation, and I don't think
the very first one was it.
Yeah, I don't think many games have a stronger foundation as this one. So,
And then that too, I think
Be
at
serious.
that time it came out in 1986 for the Famicom first, and then 87 for the NES. They converted it to the cartridge, but I think it pretty much set the foundation for action adventure games, man.
Oh.
Zelda was one of those that
Totally.
took
And
the
saving.
world by storm, right?
Yeah. Yep, had a battery in the one of the first to have a battery in the cartridge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Did the game come with a map, or is that Nintendo Power? Nintendo Power
it
had
did.
a map.
It had one.
Oh, it did. Yeah. It had
Yeah.
to have a map.
Yeah, that's my
Cool.
number 2 for sure.
Right on.
I love it.
It's a good number 2.
Mhm.
Without that game, we wouldn't have Zelda, obviously, but we also wouldn't have
Right,
in-game
right.
saves.
Yep.
Like,
We'd be still doing passwords.
Oh man,
yeah. All right, Adrian.
Mega Man status.
Number 1, baby. Let's go.
Number 1.
Right. Number 1. number one. You guys aren't gonna like this, but I don't care. Number one, The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess.
Oh, thank God! I thought you were gonna say Skyward Sword. I was like, don't do that.
Don't do that to me.
Twilight Princess is awesome. I would not be upset. I'm happy it's in the top.
Twilight Princess is how should I say? Twilight Princess is what it's the Final Fantasy 13 of the Zelda series.
I like it. I like that take.
If a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not, it's not that good. It's not. It's the least of the." But then, if you actually play it, sit down with it, spend some time with it, actually give it a fair shake, it's a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
It's definitely the most Western-facing Zelda.
Totally.
I'll say it's. You can see like there's Lord of the Rings all over this game.
Yeah.
The color palette, the soundtrack is super big and bombastic. Link is definitely like super gritty, ultra, like you were saying, Ed, Captain America. He can lift boulders and stop stop ghosts in their tracks and throw them 30 feet out that way and wrestle but no, I was of the impression that if you were looking to make a successful Zelda movie, this would be the story and the aesthetic to base it off of.
Yeah.
I think this is the landscapes, the story itself. I feel like this is a Zelda movie that was made into a game, and I think it could go vice versa.
I can see that.
But I think that's why it's my favorite, because I really like film and I really like Zelda, and this is like both of them kind of jelly together. Yeah, I really, really dig this one, and it's unfortunate for me that so many people don't, but a lot of people I found out over time have come around, and I think it's probably going to continue to go that way, especially if we get Twilight Princess coming to Switch, because there's a much bigger audience there than even GameCube or Wii U when it got the HD remaster. I think if it gets in more hands, I think more people will see, hey, this was actually a really good game. And it has the best dungeons in the series. I'll die on that hill right now.
Has some good dungeons.
It's my favorite aesthetic.
Excellent.
It's my favorite Zelda. My favorite Princess Zelda from an aesthetic standpoint. She looks awesome in that game.
Yeah,
she looks so.
Well, Ganon looks great in that.
Yeah, Ganon looks great too. Yeah.
Zant looks great. Ganon looks great. It's really good models.
Yeah.
But Zant was a really good villain too. I really enjoyed him because he was I don't know, he was kind of different than your average. I'm quirky. I'm either Ganon or he ended up being Ganon's minion, but we didn't know that for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until
you haven't even mentioned the wolf yet.
What's that?
You haven't even mentioned the wolf yet.
Wolf
Link. I was getting there. This is my number one. I'm going to expound for a little bit. Hold on, man. Zant, I really enjoyed his performance as a character and his writing. Yeah. And I really liked the reveal at the end where they turned out like he was like, I made a deal with the evil god, and he's like, who's the evil god? And of course, it's Ganondorf.
It's Ganondorf.
It's Ganon. Who else would it have been?
Yeah.
Satan.
Before I touch on Wolf Link, I have to touch on the cause for Wolf Link, which is the Twilight Princess herself. I think Midna is one of the top 3 companion characters in the franchise.
Yeah.
I think her development from not caring about Link at all, putting up this front, I'm just here. I need to save my kingdom. I'll do whatever I need to do.
I love the sass.
Yeah. In the end, basically sacrificing herself to save Zelda. I think it was a really good character arc for her. And then in the end, you actually get to see, the resolution. She returns to her true form. It's, I don't know. Midna is an awesome character. And I feel like not too many people mention it in Zelda's discussions like we're having right now. Zelda was also really good. I understand her decisions that she made to surrender because she was doing it for the betterment of her people. Surrender to Zant, so I get it. But I also love that she was able to help fight back too. I think the Wolf Link mechanic is definitely one of the more interesting ones that we've had. I don't remember outside of Majora's Mask. I don't think he's really transformed that heavily since then, right? Not that I can think of. Into like another creature or something. Like
that. I don't think he's ever really transformed into anything very often. I know he does in Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I think
Minish Cap, he gets tiny.
Yeah, but he's still him. Like this is a totally different control scheme, a totally different temperament. I mean, it's still Link, but it's a wolf. You know, got the strength of, the speed of. So it's, and I like how they incorporated it into some of the dungeons where you had to do
Twilight
Link
stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. So I don't know. I love that game, and I really want more eyes on it because it's a cult classic.
You'd think they would have made an HD remake out of it, but no, they decided to go with the Skyward Sword. They made it for a console that nobody owned.
And that's why it's coming to one that everybody owns. Mark my words, by the end of... You know what? I think they still got more announcements. I'm saying by the end of this year, it'll be there.
It better.
It'll be there.
It better. I mean, this is Zelda's 30. You can't give Mario 35 and be like, hey, we're doing all this cool special stuff, even like a weird, micro Game Boy with just like the game on it.
And then came out with a Switch bundle for Mario.
Yeah.
And all we got was Joy-Con.
And you got Joy-Cons and a freaking game that nobody really cares about. So, like... Yay.
But yeah,
happy birthday, Link.
Rules. Go play it if you haven't. It's on GameCube. It's on Wii. I never played it on Wii. I only ever played it on GameCube. So I couldn't tell you about the
Wii version. The Wii version was awesome, man.
Yeah.
It was so good. So when I went to pick up Skyward Sword, I was really kind of hoping. I was like, "Oh, cool, this will be fun." I didn't mind having to fight with like the waggle controllers, basically, because like I can literally. That was the nice thing about the Wii. So you can have like control this hand, like a little like kind of sprawl out while you're playing, And I was like, "Oh, cool." It felt fine. It felt really fine. And then Skyward Sword was like, "I hate these doggone controls so much. I'm gonna throw my controller across the
Isn't the Motion Plus? Isn't that game the reason they did the Motion Plus? Because it was so inaccurate in
I used that's with Motion Plus.
That's with Plus?
Yeah. I was like, this.
They'll fix it. The Switch version will be fine.
Yeah, you know what though? I would give it another shot, Zetch, just because the Joy-Con have to be just by default of the evolution of
intro. Look,
they gotta be way more better. Way more accurate.
That's not even my one gripe. I have like so many gripes. The story was boring. Like you spend like 4 hours in like the tutorial, and that's an exaggeration. But it's like the longest opening sequence of any Zelda game. I'm like, can something happen already? Can we just move?
Twilight Princess's intro was really long too.
It was, but at least it was interesting. At least it was interesting. In Skyward Sword, it's like, oh, you're flying around. There's literally nothing to look at. It's not like Wind Waker, where it's like, hey, you got this huge ocean. Hey, look at it. Look at it over there. This one's like, I'm flying for a really freaking long time. And I finally see the one spot I got to go to, and then I fly to it. And then when you're done with that, you fly somewhere else forever. It's the worst Zelda, guys.
No one's debating you.
I'm like, you're right. Yourself.
That game is bad.
I promise. It's the worst.
We're talking about good memories. Our favorite Zeldas is that's just flying off on Skyward Sword.
It's my life. Anyway, sorry.
I'll let my wife know, right?
Yes. Let her know that she's only got up. There's only up from there. So if she likes Skyward Sword, then she's gonna really love any other Zelda game.
I felt it just like that as soon as we end the call. Oh man, that's awesome.
Wow.
So, alrighty, Will, take us to number take us to number
so
one.
number one.
Go ahead. What's your number one?
A Link to the Past, man.
Aye.
You guys see the shirt.
Of course.
A Link to the Past, man. That game has so many filled memories. I played that game so many damn times with so many different friends on the Super Nintendo. Which friend didn't have that? I think I was the only one that didn't own the cartridge, and I didn't need it. I went to so many.
Everybody had it.
Everybody had it. I played it multiple times over with everybody and their mothers, and you know, it was one of those classics. You know, and even till today, you turn it on any system that's available, the colors are so vibrant. The story still captivates you. You know, you're still holds up to this day. As you know, it's insane how a 28-year-old game can still do that. You know.
Yeah.
But again, that's by far, I think, my greatest game ever. And again, it's probably a bit cliche, or maybe
No.
personal reasons more than others. But man, that game, I can play that over and over and over again. Yeah. I might just throw it on after we finish this call, just because.
I couldn't blame you.
Yeah.
I would not blame you.
Link to the Past is exceptionally one of the greatest games of all time, I would argue.
Of all time.
Of all time.
A masterpiece.
Yeah,
of all time.
Every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's my number one as well. So
There we go.
Did I skip you, Will? Did I skip Will? Oh my gosh, I skipped Will?
No, it just so happened that they got the same number one.
I mean, not Will.
we had the same,
Oh, you have the same
we had
number
the
one.
same number one anyway, so it's fine. But
yeah, it worked out.
Dude, Ed, I'm so sorry, bro.
About it for a while. Oh,
It's
you're
getting,
fine, you're
it's
fine.
9 o'clock. My brain is going to
No, you're fine.
mush.
You're fine. I wanted to. So what I did for my number one, you know, and I have a lot of good personal memories as well, Will. But here's some things that that Link to the Past introduced to the series. Because we talk about how Breath of the Wild did so many things originally. Here's what Link to the Past introduced, and this is just a short list. There's way more. The hook shot, the hammer,
Hook shot,
the master sword, sages, thematic dungeons based off themes, heart pieces, Kukos, Kakariko Village, Lake Hylia, Moblins. The main antagonist being a pawn of Ganon, Zelda's Lullaby, the Fairy Fountain theme, the Hyrule Castle, and Ganon's theme. And this Link was the first one that had a family member. And another big thing, bottles. It had bottles, and this is the first game to have bottles.
Bottles, yes, to hold the fairies.
True that.
Yeah,
But
these were like revolutionary things that like the rest of the series have used, and this all came from A Link to the Past. It was just that's just kind of a cool thing I put together. But there's so much I could go on about this. This is my first memory as a gamer, is this game. Because just picture a young Eddie, like age 3, hanging out with 2 older brothers who had the Super Nintendo. They're playing stuff all the time, and I was a third wheel, so I'd just watch. But when I finally got a chance to play that system, I'd put Link to the Past in, and I would just run around. I would die millions of times over. I had no idea what I was doing.
And you enjoyed
Right back to it.
Just to be in that world was like, I was so blown away by it. And I'll never forget those experiences, because that's what gaming is all about. That was that one. And here's another thing. I mean, I talked about this with Adrian when you talked about Minish Cap, is the scene areas you can't quite get to, but remembering I'm going to come back and get to this when I have an item I can get to. It kind of originated in this one. I mean, I know that the first Zelda had a lot of that too, but this one was like kind of like, there's games that come out today that have that same mechanic, like Metroidvanias, Hollow Knight. There's so many spots in Hollow Knight when you're like, oh man, I'm going to get here eventually, but I can't right now. And like, it's fun as a gamer, because you're like, I get to revisit the spot and I get to actually be badass and like go through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and like for Link to the Past was that. It was that. I could go on forever about how much I love this game, but I think it's not only my favorite Zelda. I do think it's, if someone asked me, if an alien was like, give me a Zelda game to play, I would give them this one and say, here it is. This is the definitive Zelda for me. So.
Right on.
The music, it gets you so in tune to it that you start humming it. You start hearing the chimes, even when you're not playing it.
Like the Dark World theme.
I told my wife the other day, I'm like, I sat here and played Zelda for 9 hours straight, and I'm still hearing the bells and the chimes in the back of my head. I'm like, really, where is that? I'm hearing the game, you pick up the key.
Yes, the sound effects are the best, and
Right?
the sound effects in this game. Have you ever thought about like the bomb sound, or like when the sword clings off something, it goes
Right.
like little tink sound, or like
They thought about that kind of stuff back then.
yeah,
man.
it's so
Crazy
polished.
the detail.
A lot of heart went into this game, and even like the what?
A lot of pieces
When
of
you like
heart.
go from world to world. Yes, It's just and it's I think it's the perfect length. It's got a lot of dungeons in it. It's like Twilight Princess level dungeons. It's got a ton, but it also it's one of those games. I feel like Nintendo games in the '90s did this whole like I'm gonna pull a fast one on you, where like you get the 3 pendants and you're like, oh, I guess I'm done with the game, but they're like, nope, you have 8 more dungeons to get. Yeah, like, so many.
And
games
they're like, oh, you did the 8 dungeons? Nope. Nope. Dark World time.
Exactly. I love that. So I love Link to the Past.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess that means it's my turn for my number one.
Hit it.
My number one is probably going to surprise a lot of you. Is Majora's Mask. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Horse.
Oh man. So I will never forget the Christmas I got Majora's Mask. I really, really wanted it. I was like, oh man, I didn't think I was going to get it, you know? And my fam back then was like, we were really, really poor. So I wasn't expecting much. And so I open up this present and unwrap it, and it's like a coffee machine box. I was like, what the heck is this?
They got you.
I open it up, and it's Majora's Mask with the player's guide and a new controller. And I was like,
wow.
Heck yes!
And a new
controller. Yeah.
That's the best Christmas ever.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. And I spent so many hours playing that game. I love how atmospheric that game is. I love Majora's Mask as the villain. I think he's one of the coolest looking villains in all of Zelda. I think he's the coolest looking one. I so much so that even during college, I actually had printed off like an actual Majora's Mask like picture and like had taped it inside my binder. And people would be like, "What is that creepy looking mask?" I was like, let me tell you.
If you have to ask, you don't know.
Yeah.
They actually do make Majora's Masks. You could get one.
I know. I've seen them, and I'm jelly. And if I got one, it's totally gonna be hung up somewhere in my room, in here.
Just be careful with that mask. You don't know what it might do.
Don't want to follow in it. There's little pokey horns on the side of it, but
no, he's talking about if you put it on.
If I put it on,
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what
You're
it is.
the Skull Kid.
Don't mess with me. So, but yeah, no, I love the fact that game is also. I mean, I know that in the interviews they haven't really clearly said if it is or isn't, but I mean, for me, it feels like it really is. It feels like it's an analogy of the different stages of grief, right? Mm-hmm. Where you have, what is it? Denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance, right? So you have the townsfolk of Clocktown, which are in denial that the moon's falling down, even though they can literally see it getting closer and closer every day.
Coming day by day, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's not like it's a cute looking moon. That's the other thing I love about it. I love how terrifying that thing is, right? It's like
I hate it.
That game is like metaphoric to life. It's like you can see your problems coming your way, and you can either face them head on or you can pretend they're not there. Right? I love it. There's so much depth to that game, and it is a shorter Zelda. I mean, it's only got 4 dungeons, and then the final.
If you get all the masks, it takes some time.
It is, but it's interesting because like the masks are basically just side quests, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, and I love how like each spot is representative of different parts of grief. I mean, you have like the angry Deku Tree, the depressed singer,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The bargaining Goron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then your final confrontation. I love how you finally help mend Tattle and Tails' relationship, his brother and sister. How the Skull Kid is kind of like, I'm really sorry I messed everything up. I love how if you get all the masks and you can get the fierce deity mask in the end. I love how you just like turn into like you
super OP.
Yeah, and I just remember the first time I did that, and I just like demolished Majora. I was like, it wasn't even a match. Like, you get that last mask, and you beat the game in like 30 seconds. Like, just like, baby.
Speaking of themes, that's like Link at his most scariest, strongest ever, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nice message of the player. It's like, this is Link at his full strength, and it's scary. He's like a villain in some ways.
Yeah. He's a Super Saiyan Link.
Should have been his final Smash. Should have been his final
Smash Bros.
Totally. Put on the Fierce Deities mask and just kill everyone. It's like
they goofed.
it kind of makes you think like, man, like if you really put enough time into it and you become this strong, is it really like this is the reward you reap? But even just like wreaking the havoc you can as that form is like, is this what Link is striving for? Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really interesting to dig into his psyche, and this game digs into Link's psyche. And this is the same Link that just saved the world in Ocarina of Time.
I love that, and that's the other thing too. I love how it's a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time. Like a lot of Zelda games. Yeah, and
like, what do you do now? You were a kid, you became an adult, now you're a kid again.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah. So now what do you do?
Exactly, and I love how I honestly kind of don't think that Link is actually there in this world. I kind of think it's actually more of like an alternate dimension, or a really bad dream, because
and he's filling all these characters with characters he's seen before. That's why
exactly
the character models are the same, and he's kind of fulfilling this in his head or whatever.
Exactly, and that's why the world is so weird. Like there's a random town called Clock Town in the middle of nowhere, and the way you get there is through this really weird rabbit hole like thing.
It's Alice in Wonderland. You fall down to get to this world, and everything is trippy, and it's like Twin Peaks.
Exactly.
There's something. There's so many cool themes in this game, dude. I love it.
Yeah, Majora's Mask is, for nothing else, probably my favorite, just because like I love the like nostalgia of it. I love the music in it, like Stone Tower. Like that's like one of my favorite Zelda, tracks I think ever. One of my favorite Zelda temples.
Definitely the darkest of the series, I would say.
Easy.
Oh yeah.
Easily
the
darkest.
Theme is cool. There's some dark moments in Twilight Princess though, Adrian.
There is, but I'm talking about like overall, like there's dark moments in Twilight Princess, but like this game in Majora's Mask, like some of the moments are just straight up depressing.
That scene where was it Kefe and his wife like hugging each other as the moon is crashing? It's like all they have is each other in that moment. It's like, man.
That's what I'm saying. Where is that in Twilight Princess? You're not getting close to that in Twilight Princess. Yeah. It's a lot of despair, but it's not into the world like that.
Yeah, like it's just so good. It's my favorite Zelda game.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
So cool. We are a little over time. We're about 14 minutes over time. I want to thank you guys for hanging out and chatting Zelda with me during the Zelda.
That was difficulties at the beginning. We gotta dismiss that part.
Yeah. So the first 14 minutes, doesn't count at all.
Fair enough.
Thanks for having me, man.
One thing I want to say that might be controversial, especially to Will. What I'm hoping for the future of the series, especially with the sequel to Breath of the Wild coming up, I really, really, really hope at some point we get to play as Zelda.
That'd be kind of fun.
That's just me. I feel like they're setting this one up for you. I'm not saying the whole game, but I think at some point it would be interesting to play as Zelda.
I don't want to.
She does have magical powers.
I don't want to play as Zelda. I want to play as Sheik.
What if Zelda?
Dude.
What if Zelda got the Triforce of Courage and Link had the Triforce of Wisdom? Like, what if they did that? Or if Zelda had the Triforce of Courage and Link had the Triforce of Wisdom?
Vice versa.
That'd be too cliche.
That'd be interesting. You think so?
Yeah.
I would like to see them, like how we were talking about the DS games. I'm not talking about like that caliber, but I'm saying I would like to see
something with Zelda story.
Right, something with from Zelda's perspective. I think
would play that.
Yeah,
I would play that. Because she's always going kidnapped again, taken away, and everything bad's happening to her. Let's see her be the one fending for herself this time.
Yeah, I want to see her use her magic. Let's go.
Right. She does know magic. Yeah.
There's games on the Philips CDI that star Zelda.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Those don't count.
No, those are in a landfill somewhere, and let's keep them there.
Yeah.
Those are an abomination.
No, I don't know. Do you guys have anything for where you would like to see it go?
I would like to see more top-down ones. Like you talked about Link's Awakening. I actually haven't played that, the Switch one. I really want to, but they're going to like. I would love for them to keep doing the Breath of the Wild treatment for the 3D titles, and then keep doing top-down 2D titles as well. Because I do think I love 2D top-down Zeldas. I think those are great. So
I would like
tell you what.
I would like a Twilight Princess type status, like
a sequel,
kinda, but. Like we were talking about, Twilight Princess was really dark and gritty, and like how even Link's like character model looks more grown up.
Yeah.
I want to see them commit to that. Like, you ever see how
realistic?
you know like how they did Ocarina of Time in like Unreal, like someone recreated the Ocarina of Time in Unreal, and it's like looks like freaking gorgeous. I'd want that.
We gotta get better hardware for that, buddy.
Yeah.
What about like a Zelda roguelike where you get random items and you have to go through and like do a bunch of challenges, kind of like Hades type deal? But
Some people would like
Zelda.
that. I wouldn't. I can see that.
Zelda Assassin's Creed like.
Zelda Assassin's Creed.
Ooh.
I would
I
like
would
to see
be
like
open to the
customization.
roguelike though. I would be
Yeah,
open
I
to at
think-
least try it.
That's like a side, not like a mainline title, but like a side title and like Zelda Dungeon style, where it's like you team up with friends, you get to take control of different characters, and you try to
that
beat the
would be
game.
like- yeah.
You know, game also was really good. If I were to have an honorable mention, would be Four Swords.
Four Swords.
Four Swords Adventures. That game was
I love
so
that.
fun.
I only
My
got to play with one person,
Isn't that the
but
one you
I never
needed
got
friends to play
four.
with? You couldn't play without friends?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the only one I've never played because I never
I
had.
had friends.
Yeah. Well,
Same.
number one, that. But number two, I didn't have.
I didn't mean it's so derogatory in a derogatory. I mean, I never had friends that had the game.
I never knew the
Right.
people who had it, so
Right.
it was always
But that's
there
the
on my
advance.
Zelda carts. But
Yeah,
never
you had to have the advance and the connect cable to get to your GameCube,
right.
and you
So-
all have it.
One time, I've only ever played it once. Okay, and we were in Pennsylvania visiting some friends. It was me and my brother and my family, and we're visiting a friend of mine, and we're staying at his house, and it was him and his brother and his family, right? His mom and dad. It was only him and his brother that lived there, his mom and dad, and we had like 3 days where we weren't going to do anything at all. Like my mom had planned like nothing to do, so we literally, the four of us, hunkered down in that guy's basement for 3 days and cranked through Four Swords from start to finish. It was awesome. So much rage when your friends are chucking you down like holes and like stealing all your coins and then bragging about how they got first. You're like, yeah, because you chucked me down a hole and you took all my coins. Like,
it's
a good game.
It's on my bucket list to play, man. I got to figure out some way to play it.
It's
But
hard.
I want to play it as it came out. Like I want to sit
Yeah.
around with people.
Yeah.
We all got Game Boys and we're all playing it that way.
I still have my Game Boy. I still have my Game Boy and my cable and everything.
So I got my game.
Okay, so that's two.
I have 2 Game Boys. Actually, one of them was my brother's. No, I got 4 Game Boys.
I still have my first DS. that
My
can play
sisters
Game Boy.
gave me theirs.
Yeah, I got Game Boy Color, DS, 3DS.
I don't got the
Switch
game though.
now.
I don't got the game.
Yeah,
though.
no, I think I downloaded it on the 3DS, and that's how I realized that I needed friends to play with. And that's how I realized it. So you know what? I'm about to bump off Phantom Hourglass from the fourth and put Four Swords there. Whose idea was it that I needed friends to play Zelda with? Whose idea was it?
They're trying to get you out the house, man.
Oh, man.
Go see the world.
Well, I will hate
Yeah,
to
go make some friends there.
What? Oh yeah, try for serious.
Will and Ed, what do you want to see in the future from the series? Where do you want to see it go? Like, you want to see a futuristic one? You want to see?
Yes, Zelda with hovercrafts.
You know that was a concept at one point.
I'm sure.
We're thinking about doing the space one.
Space Link.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that would be. They could probably tie that into the multiverse kind of way.
Yeah,
Maybe
I wouldn't rule it out.
I don't want to roll anything out, but
I don't think that's gonna
I'll
happen.
see.
I think we might get some sort of steampunk adventure. I mean, the way like Breath of the Wild went. Anyway, Will, what do you think, man? Go ahead.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna stand with the game like mechanics like Assassin's Creed almost. You know, being able to change your weapons. You know, going away from the original green and red and you know the white outfits and just being able to just customize Link to the full capacity, changing his shields, changing his swords. You know, something like that, something different where you can explore a whole world, a whole bigger world than what it was,
That'd be cool.
bigger than what Ocarina of Time presented to the N64.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you know, the one thing we were like, oh, the map is tremendous. I mean, you look at Assassin's Creed's more recently ones, their maps are huge. Imagine a Zelda game like that where you can go to the top of the mountain and take a picture. I think you can do that in the Breath of the Wild, though, right? You can take, so just
That's
a more expansive version, I guess.
Yeah.
It's already huge, bro. I don't know how much bigger I need it.
Breath of the Wild is freaking ginormous. I think.
To try that.
It'll take you all day to get from one corner of the map to the other.
Yeah,
But
so
initially, I was gonna say I don't know where I wanted to go, but I know tomorrow I was gonna go somewhere and pick up a Zelda game for Switch. But
Breath of the Wild.
yeah,
If you
Breath
beat-
of the Wild might be it.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be it. You're gonna go get Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
yeah. It's a
Breath of the Wild. Everything you just asked about, Breath of the Wild is doing.
Yeah.
I figured. All right.
Getting shields, weapons, stealth.
Yeah.
The Sheikah armor in Breath of the Wild was like my favorite armor. It was like the coolest looking armor.
Yeah.
Oh, so it does that. Okay, see, that's why I said I'm late to the game.
The catching armor.
I dyed mine green.
Oh, and you got different dyes too?
Huh?
Mm-hmm. You can change the color of your gear and stuff.
Yeah, I'm late to the game. I need to go get that tomorrow.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we probably won't be speaking to you for like a month because you're gonna be so immersed into the world. So it's been nice knowing you.
I'll be on Twitch, guys. I'll see you there.
Yeah.
All right, right on.
Ed, what do you want, man?
Oh, I like a 2D one. As long as I keep doing 2D top-down Zeldas, I'd be happy.
Okay.
And then just keep building off Breath of the Wild, and then I'm good. Like honestly, I can go back and revisit so many great titles from Zelda and be happy. I don't need them to rehash what they've already done. Just keep moving forward with Breath of the Wild. And I do think the Nintendo is going to keep pouring as much as they can into Zelda. I think Zelda, Splatoon, Mario, and Animal Crossing, aside from Pokemon because they're their own thing, those are the top.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah, but I think those four are like the top marketing for Nintendo right now as far as getting like Americans to buy their stuff. It's like they're marketing to people who will play Splatoon, Animal Crossing, Mario, and Zelda right now. So
why? Maybe you guys can answer me this before we close out. Mm-hmm. Why is it that Nintendo dumps so much money into all these franchises, but totally neglects two of the greatest, Metroid and Star Fox?
I know.
Like,
it hurts.
What the heck?
Because I don't think kids want to play Metroid. I think kids want to play Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Zelda, and Mario. Like,
Which is wild to me.
I don't understand.
I think that's what it is because Metroid Prime was revolutionary in the sense that I don't think Nintendo thought Metroid Prime was going to do well because Retro Studios developed it, and they were like, go ahead and do your thing. We're going to focus on Metroid Fusion.
Because they were like, well, we already made Super Metroid. Like, we can't make anything better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Metroid Prime sold so well with Americans because we're like, this is what we want. But since then, it's like, they can't get on the same page with stuff. So I would like 2D Metroidvanias personally, but but I don't know what it is. And even like the series like F-Zero, Star Fox, like all these like that.
Yeah, F-Zero. Yeah. You know how cool a Switch F-Zero would be dope.
They just need to port the GameCube one. The GameCube one is F-Zero perfected. You can't make a better F-Zero than that one.
Yeah, that game was so good.
But I think it's because kids are into like
Fortnite,
Splatoons, and Animal Crossings, and then Minecraft, and Roblox, and they're gonna go for those. For
Samus
them,
is one of the dopest characters ever made in gaming history.
I agree, but I don't. Yeah, it's weird because you think Nintendo's target market would be millennials like us and kids. So like you appeal to your millennials by doing stuff like
because we got money.
The Ninja Turtles game that's coming out.
Oh my God! Don't get me started.
Take my money.
Take my money.
Like
take my money. I don't care how bad it is.
That appeals to us, but also that's a third-party title. That's a third-party development title that Switch is going to have. They're relying on stuff like that to appeal to us while they're focusing.
Tells me that it might be a bad game.
No way.
It's going to be the same company that made
There's some bad Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games out there.
It is. No. This one is made by the people who made Scott Pilgrim, and Scott Pilgrim
and Streets of Rage 4. And Streets of Rage 4 was good. Like this is gonna be good.
Those are some very capable hands. There's still plenty of room for error, but they're pretty capable hands.
Yes.
So, alrighty, boys. I'm gonna sign us out of here. It's been great hanging out with you, Adrian. Where can people find you on the web?
People can find me anywhere and everywhere at Homeboy, HOLMBOI.
And Ed, how about you, man? That's your chance to plug yourself.
My wife and I, Stephanie, we stream on Twitch at normcore_gaming. Normcore_gaming. That's also our Twitter handle as well. So give us a follow. And if you want to see random shenanigans and not great gameplay, you'll see me and my wife playing. So we have a lot of fun.
Wait, anything you're playing through right now, particularly?
Every Kingdom Hearts game ever. So all the Kingdom Hearts for the first time.
A man of taste.
And we're doing retro. You got it, homeboy. You got
it. And Will, where can people find you, bud?
That's the real gaming dad everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. I play all types of games, man. Right now, currently, I'm doing the Final Fantasies. All of the ones that came out on Game Pass, which is 12. I have other ones that I have to pre-install and get through on my backlog, like the Lightning.
When you hit 13, I'll be there.
Hey, got you for sure. But yeah, I'm definitely doing that. So I'm pretty occupied for the rest of the year.
Awesome. Well, you guys can't find me very much any other place besides probably just the Super Gamer Boys Discord. But if you want to follow Super Gamer Boys, check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Super Gamer Boys. We'll be there. And on Twitch, which is here. Just give us a follow, subscribe, hit us up.
Yep.
You know, and YouTube, Super Gamer Boys. So if you want to listen to the podcast, check out episodes there. Hit it up. You should be able to find a recording of this there as well. So if you want to go back and rewind it and, you know, listen to our words of Zelda wisdom, that's where you do that. So, thank you everybody for hanging out with me. It's been fun. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. And until then, stay safe.
Good night, America.
Take a sword with you because it's dangerous to go alone.
Good night to the world.
Dangerous. Take one of these.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, the sword, yes.
And we are the Super Gamer Boys, and we're out.